Godzilla Minus One is one of the best films of any genre I've seen in years and well worth watching. I've reviewed a handful of Godzilla movies on this channel, and I've been critical of both Legendary and Polygon Pictures. However, this film is not only a great send-up to the Ishiro Honda films, but an incredibly beautiful work of art that stands well on its own. One of the things I've always praised the majority of Toho's Gojira films for having is a wonderful use of thematic storytelling to form poignant commentary on relevant social issues. The first film expressed the great sorrow and harm caused by the atomic bombs. Mothra vs. Godzilla examines the danger nuclear testing as well as capitalism brings both to the Japanese people, but also the indigenous peoples of the other Pacific islands, and the importance of journalism in the modern world. GMK expresses concern with Imperial Japan's role as colonizer and genocidaire during the years of the Second World War being ignored by modern citizens. And Final Wars, well, they can't all be winners. But Godzilla Minus One absolutely is. Unlike most of my analyses on films, I want to avoid spoilers as much as possible, since the film is still in the theaters as I'm releasing this video, and certainly worth watching there. Still, I can say its themes are deep and complex while weaving effortlessly with the narrative. Though plot-wise similar to many Godzilla films we've seen before, this film has wonderful themes of the value of a human life, the importance of community, and the beauty of a found family. Yamazaki Takashi is the writer and director, and tells a story about an ex-kamikaze pilot named Shikishima Koichi, plagued with survivor's guilt, played beautifully by Kamiki Ryonosuke. Throughout the film, every actor gives a great performance, but Kamiki is phenomenal, and though horror and sci-fi films seldom see the most prestigious accolades here in the States, I think this is, at the very least, Oscar nominee caliber acting. Shikishima seamlessly alternates between a normal man trying to make a living and a tortured man traumatized by his experiences. Part of the brilliance of this film is in its framing. Minor spoilers, but the events take place primarily in the 2 years following the Second World War, a very delicate point in world history. Though I, as someone who is not Japanese, certainly am missing out on elements I don't notice, I thought it was very interesting that the film chose to be almost unconcerned with the governments at the time. The Japanese, US, and Soviet governments all play some part in the plot, but we see almost nothing of them. Outside of the prologue, we never really see any of their perspectives. All three nations committed atrocities during and leading up to the 1940s, and nothing in the film, at least that I can tell, tries to excuse or justify any of them, though of course I may have missed something. However, there are certainly criticisms of these governments here, but they are much subtler, focusing instead on the harm caused by apathy felt by the Japanese civilians. There is no scene like in GMK where characters discuss the genocides committed by the Japanese Empire, nor are there scenes like in Gojira where characters discuss the trauma caused by the bomb. Both of these stories are worth telling, but Minus One tells a separate one that also deserves its moment. Neither are really the focus here, when instead the community of the civilians must band together to support each other and save each other in the absence of care from both the Japanese and United States government. One of the most beautiful scenes comes a little over halfway through the movie as they discuss this under the scope of what a civilian-led operation will look like. I won't spoil it, but it was one of multiple scenes that brought tears to my eyes. Over the course of the film, as the community begins shattered by the war, it slowly builds into a magnificent collaborative force, making for some of the best human characters a kaiju movie can have. At the center of this community, from our perspective at least, is Shikishima, and two displaced people he takes in, Noriko and Akiko. Noriko is played by Hamabe Minami, and potentially is the second protagonist of the film. One of the few minor criticisms I have of the film is that, though her character starts out incredibly strong, the focus on her throughout is not as much as it could be. However, as this is a 2-hour film and no scenes feel unnecessary, I stress again that this is a minor criticism. It's hardly a bad thing when a film leaves you wanting for more. Through Noriko and Akiko, Shikishima's childhood neighbor, and the three men with whom he works to decommission mines, a family completely unrelated by blood or marriage takes center stage, and it's one of the most honest and admirable portrayals of a family I've seen recently, with all of the ups and downs, the pros and cons, and the terrors and beauties that entails. Though Shikishima is the main character, I also adore how these characters don't just interact with him, but interact with each other as well. Many screenwriters could benefit from learning how this film crafts supporting characters. And a short review of a Gojira film wouldn't be complete without discussing the monster themselves. This is probably the scariest Gojira has been since 1956. Though this is still an animal lacking any true malice or evil, the camera shows much more directly the results of their destructions than before. There is no gore or tastelessly macabre imagery, but just enough of the way the film is shot changes the horror level to be much more personal. In part, some of this I'm sure is due to technological restraints at the time of Honda's filming. But much of it comes from knowing just how much death to show to be gruesome without being disgusting. The fear feels much realer than most films in this franchise by putting us on the level of the humans running away more often than not. There are, of course, plenty of great classic shots, but for once, we are running with the crowd away from Gojira rather than watching them from afar, which is perhaps coincidentally also one of the few segments of Godzilla 2014 that I thought worked pretty well. And visually, this film is stunning. Yamazaki served as not just writer and director, but also as co-visual effects director alongside frequent collaborator Shibuya Kyoko. She worked with him on a Gojira-themed ride for Seibuen as well, which, after seeing their work here, is definitely something I'd love to see someday. But I also have to really commend the prop set and costume departments. Though I only know 1940s Japan through photographs and surviving footage, the clothing, the architecture, and so much of the world around these great characters draws you into the world with ease. And, of course, there's the sound. My goodness, the sound. Ifukube Akira's original score and original roar are both used liberally here, and it's a great choice. But Sato Naoki, whom you might know from the 2020 Olympics, also crafted original themes that are simultaneously fitting with the 70-year-old music and comparable to modern film soundtracks. In all, both visually and audibly, this film is superb. This is not a perfect film, as I think there is no such thing, and I am sure that there are nuances I could not catch that I would love to learn about. But if you are looking for a great film, regardless of if you have a connection to this IP at all, I cannot recommend it enough. And if you're a Godzilla fan like me looking for another great Godzilla film, I would be shocked if you came away anything less than thrilled and satisfied, or at the very least intrigued. Thanks for watching.